I have spent 68 years learning what a man can forgive. A late invoice, a neighbor's dog digging under the fence, a grown child forgetting to call on a Sunday because life got busy. I can forgive all that. You know what I cannot forgive, family? I cannot forgive a man standing on my late wife's back porch, grilling steaks on my propane, with a handmade banner tied between her cedar posts that reads, Stokes Family Lake Weekend, then looking me dead in the eye and saying, Relax, Walt. Your daughter will own this place one day anyway. That was the moment I stopped being angry. That was the moment I became organized. My name is Walter Hayes. I am 68 years old, born in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I made my living the old-fashioned way, waking up before the sun and coming home with my hands sore. For 37 years, I owned Hayes Electrical and Marine, a small contracting outfit that wired lake houses, boat docks, marinas, and half the restaurants around Douglas Lake. I never got rich in the flashy way. No private jets, no glass office downtown. But I paid every man on Friday, sent my only daughter to college without a loan, buried my wife with dignity, and kept my promises. The cabin on Cedar Hollow Road was one of those promises. My wife, Eleanor, found it 22 years ago. She called me from the driveway, before she even stepped inside, and said, Walter, this place has a porch that makes you breathe slower. She was right. 3 bedrooms, weathered cedar siding, stone fireplace, dock out back, a line of sycamores by the water, and a porch facing west, so the sunset came in like a blessing every evening. Eleanor passed 6 years ago, and for a long time, I couldn't sit on that porch without hearing her humming in the kitchen, so I kept the cabin closed most of the year. I had a neighbor check the pipes. I paid a company to mow. I went out every month, opened the windows, ran the water, swept the leaves off the steps, and left before memory got too comfortable. Then my daughter, Megan, called me one Tuesday morning in April and told me I was going to be a grandfather. That changed something in me. Not all at once. Not like lightning. More like a light coming on in a room I had kept shut for years. I started thinking about Eleanor's porch differently. I pictured a little boy or girl running down to the dock with a life jacket too big for them. I pictured Megan sitting in Eleanor's old rocker, one hand on a coffee mug, the other on a sleeping baby. I pictured summers again. So I decided to get the cabin ready. Not to sell, not to hand over, just to bring it back to life. I called a locksmith to replace the old deadbolts. I called a security company to install cameras and smart sensors. I called a cleaning crew, a dock repairman, and a painter named Luis, who had done honest work for me for years. I was going to do this properly. New locks, new cameras, fresh paint, clean gutters, no shortcuts. That Friday morning, I drove out there early to meet the locksmith at 10. The road to Cedar Hollow runs along the lake for the last 3 miles. It curves through hickory trees and little vacation homes with fishing boats in the driveways. I knew every dip in that road. I knew where the pavement cracked after a hard winter. I knew where Eleanor used to say the view opened up like God had pulled back a curtain. I remember feeling good that morning. That matters. I wasn't looking for trouble. I had a travel mug of coffee in the cup holder, a folder of contractor quotes on the passenger seat, and a bag of blueberry muffins from Megan's favorite bakery because I thought I might drop by her place on the way home. Then, I turned into my gravel driveway and saw 12 vehicles. Not 2, not 3, 12. Pickup trucks, SUVs, a minivan, a camper trailer back near the side yard, and a black Tahoe I recognized immediately. It belonged to Vernon Stokes, my son-in-law's father. My daughter Megan married Evan Stokes 4 years earlier. Evan was a decent man. A little soft-spoken, maybe too eager to keep peace, but he treated my daughter well and worked hard as a physical therapist in Maryville. His parents were another story. Vernon Stokes was the kind of man who called every favor family and every boundary disrespect. His wife, Patricia, smiled while he did it. I had tolerated them at birthdays, cookouts, baby announcements, and holidays because Megan loved Evan and I loved Megan. But there is a difference between tolerating a man at Thanksgiving and finding his camper plugged into your outdoor outlet. I stopped my truck halfway up the driveway. Music was playing from the back porch. Smoke rolled up from my grill. Somebody had moved Eleanor's blue porch chairs into the yard and arranged them in a circle. There were coolers by the steps, towels over the railing, and that banner, Stokes Family Lake Weekend. I did not get out. At my age, pride is not a security plan. I pulled out my phone and called the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. When the dispatcher answered, I told her my name, my address, and exactly what I was looking at. I said there were multiple vehicles on my private property, people inside and outside the cabin, and I had not given anyone permission to be there. I told her I was the legal owner and that I would wait in my truck until deputies arrived. Then I called the locksmith and told him to park at the end of the driveway until law enforcement cleared the scene. That right there, family, is the first lesson. You do not walk into a house full of people who already think your property belongs to them and hope manners will do the job. The first deputy arrived in 9 minutes. Deputy Carla Ramirez, mid-40s, calm eyes, neat uniform, the kind of person who doesn't waste movement. A second unit pulled in behind her. I handed her my driver's license, my proof of ownership from the folder, and explained again. She looked up at the banner, then at the camper, then at the smoke coming from my grill. You know them? She asked. I know some of them, I said. That doesn't mean they belong here. She nodded once. We walked up together. Vernon saw us before we reached the porch. He was standing at my grill, wearing one of those loud vacation shirts, holding tongs in one hand and a beer in the other. He looked at Deputy Ramirez, then at me, and his smile tightened just enough to tell me he knew this was not going to be the friendly conversation he had imagined. Walt, he called out, spreading his arms like he was welcoming me to his event. You made it. I didn't answer. I was too busy looking. There were people everywhere. A man I didn't know coming out of the cabin with one of Eleanor's beach towels around his neck. 2 teenage boys tossing a football near the flower bed she had planted herself. Patricia Stokes on my porch, barefoot, sipping from one of Eleanor's yellow glasses. A woman I had never met, carrying a tray through my kitchen like she had been born there. And on the porch table, beside a stack of paper plates, sat the thing that turned my stomach cold. Eleanor's silver serving bowl. It had been her mother's. We used it every Thanksgiving for cranberry relish. I had not taken it out of the cabinet since the last holiday before she got sick. Now it was full of potato chips. Deputy Ramirez stepped forward. Sir, who is in charge here? Vernon laughed softly. In charge? Well, I guess I am. This is just a family weekend. No problem. This your property? She asked. Vernon glanced at me. It's family property. No, I said. It is not. Patricia stood up from the porch chair. Walter, please don't make this ugly. Evan said it would be okay. I turned my eyes to her. Evan does not own this cabin. Vernon set the tongs down and wiped his hands on a towel that also belonged to me. Come on now. Your daughter is married to my son. They're having a baby. One day all this goes to them anyway. We're not strangers. That was when a few people chuckled. Not loud, just enough. The kind of laugh people make when they think the person being disrespected is too old, too polite, or too afraid of family trouble to respond. I looked at the banner again. Then, the camper. Then Eleanor's serving bowl. Deputy Ramirez said, Mr. Hayes, do any of these people have your permission to be on the property? No. Did you give them a key? No. Did you authorize this gathering? No. Vernon's face changed. Not much. Just a tightening around the jaw. The mask slipped, and I saw the man behind it. Irritated, entitled, embarrassed that I had brought a witness wearing a badge. Walter, he said, lower now, you really want to call the law on family? I stepped onto the bottom porch step. I did not raise my voice. I did not point. I did not perform for the crowd. The deed has one name on it, I said. Mine. Everyone who does not live here is leaving now. Anything of mine that leaves with you will be reported as stolen. Anything damaged will be billed. And if anyone comes back without written permission, I will press charges. The yard went quiet enough that I could hear grease popping on the grill. Deputy Ramirez took over from there. That is what you pay taxes for. She asked people for identification. She wrote down plates. She informed Vernon and Patricia they were being officially trespassed from the property unless I chose otherwise later. The second deputy walked through the cabin with me. I wish I could tell you they had only been there an hour. They had not. The primary bedroom had luggage in it. Vernon and Patricia had slept in my bed. Someone had opened the linen closet. Someone had gone through the pantry. The refrigerator was full. A box of mail sat on the counter, mail that did not belong to me. A grocery receipt showed purchases from 3 days earlier. 3 days. They had been using my wife's cabin for 3 days. In the guest room, I found an inflatable mattress. In the small bedroom Eleanor used to call the kid room, someone had set up a folding crib. On the dresser was a printed schedule. Friday arrival, Saturday lake day, Sunday brunch, Monday checkout, checkout. That word did something to me. I carried the paper outside and handed it to Deputy Ramirez. She looked at it, then at Vernon. "This an organized rental?" she asked. "No," Vernon snapped. "It's a family gathering." I said, "Then why does it say checkout?" Nobody answered. By noon, they were gone. Not gracefully, not quietly, but gone. Vernon loaded his cooler, with the posture of a man who believed he was the victim. Patricia cried just enough for the women around her to comfort her. One of the teenagers asked if they were still going tubing. A cousin in an orange Tennessee cap muttered that some people didn't know how to share. I let them talk. The locksmith changed every exterior lock before 2 o'clock. The security company moved my appointment up when I explained the situation, and by 6 that evening, I had cameras at the driveway, the porch, the dock, and the back door. I had new keypad codes, glass sensors, motion alerts, and a written sheriff's report. I also had Eleanor's silver bowl washed, dried, wrapped in a towel, and placed in the passenger seat beside me like a fragile witness. On the drive home, I called Megan. She answered, cheerful. "Hey, Dad, did the locksmith show up?" "Yes," I said. "But we need to talk." A pause. "What happened? Did you or Evan give Vernon the cabin key?" Silence. Not guilt. Confusion. "No," she said slowly. "Dad, why would we?" "Put Evan on speaker." A little rustling. Evan came on the line. "Walter? Evan, did you give your father access to my cabin?" He did not answer fast enough. Megan said, "Evan," he sighed. "I gave him the old lockbox code after that storm in February. He said he was near the lake and could check for dock damage while we were out of town. I forgot he had it." Megan's voice went sharp. "You gave your father Dad's cabin code?" I thought he was helping. I kept my eyes on the road. "Evan," I said, "your father has been at my cabin for 3 days with a dozen people, a camper, coolers, and a printed weekend schedule." Megan made a sound like the air left her. Evan said, "No, he wouldn't." He did. The sheriff's office was there. A report was filed. The locks are changed. Cameras are up. Megan whispered, "Dad, I'm so sorry." That hurt more than Vernon's laughter. My daughter apologizing while pregnant for something she had not done. "You don't apologize for another grown man's trespass," I said. "You hear me?" "Yes." "Evan," I said, "I'm going to say this once, because I love my daughter, and I believe you love her too. Your father used your trust in him to enter my property. That is on him. But the code came from you. That part is on you." "I know," he said quietly. "No, son. You don't know yet. But you will." I hung up before anger could make me say more than truth required. I spent that night at my kitchen table with a legal pad, the sheriff's report, the printed schedule, and photographs from my phone. I wrote down everything: times, names, vehicles, items used, items damaged, the towel Vernon wiped his hands on, the silver bowl, the camper line plugged into my outlet, the opened cabinet where Eleanor's things were stored. At 8:05 Monday morning, I called my attorney. Her name was Denise Callahan. She was 61, had practiced estate and property law for 30 years, and had the rare gift of making dangerous things sound boring. That is what good attorneys do. They remove the thunder and leave you with the lightning. I told her the story from beginning to end. When I finished, she said, "You did the right thing by calling law enforcement first. I thought you'd say that. I wish more people did." Then she asked me to send the report, the photos, the schedule, and any security invoices. She said we would send certified trespass notices. We would prepare a demand letter for damages and unauthorized use. We would document everything. Then she paused. Walter, she said, there's something else you need to think about. I'm already thinking about it. Your estate documents? Yes. Good, she said, because this was not about a cookout. That was the sentence that stayed with me. This was not about a cookout. For 2 days, I believed the worst part had already happened. I believed Vernon had overstepped, gotten embarrassed, and would slink back to whatever hole entitled men crawl into when paperwork appears. Then the mail arrived at the cabin. I know because I went there Wednesday afternoon to meet Luis, the painter. Before he arrived, I checked the mailbox out of habit. Inside were 4 pieces of mail. 1 was mine, 3 were not. A glossy postcard from a vacation rental website addressed to Vernon Stokes at my cabin. A letter from an insurance company referencing a quote for short-term lake property liability coverage. And a county envelope addressed to Stokes Lakeside Retreat, LLC. I stood at the mailbox with the lake wind moving through the trees, and felt something settle in me so cold it almost felt peaceful. Vernon had not borrowed my cabin. He had been trying to turn it into a business. Denise had the documents in her email 10 minutes later. She called me back before I reached the main road. Do not throw anything away, she said. I won't. Do not call him. I won't. Do not call Megan yet. That one was harder. Why? Because first we build the file. Then we decide who needs to hear what. There is a kind of anger that makes young men slam doors. There is another kind that comes later in life. It does not shout. It makes copies. Over the next week, Denise and I built the file. The sheriff's report. The photographs. The trespass notices. The rental mail. The insurance quote. The LLC envelope. The printed weekend schedule. The cleaning invoice. The locksmith receipt. The security system invoice. The list of personal items used without permission. A repair estimate for a cracked porch board where the camper jack had been set wrong. Then Denise found the online listing. It was not live anymore, but it had been cached long enough for her investigator to capture it. Private family lake cabin. Available select weekends. 3 bedrooms. Dock access. Perfect for reunions. The photos were old pictures from Megan's social media. My porch, my dock, my fireplace, Eleanor's kitchen. Vernon had used pictures from my daughter's posts to advertise my wife's cabin. The listed host name was V.S. The rate was $375 a night. Family, I want you to understand something. I did not need money from Vernon Stokes. I did not care about $375 a night. What I cared about was the assumption underneath it. He saw an old man, a pregnant daughter, a soft son-in-law, and a lake cabin with memories in the walls, and he thought, nobody will stop me. That was his mistake. I did not sell the cabin. I know some men would have. I thought about it for half a day. Cash out. Remove the target. Let strangers own the porch so the Stokes family could never touch it. But by sunset, I knew better. Eleanor had loved that place. My grandchild deserved to see that sunset. Megan deserved to sit on that porch without feeling that her father had surrendered something precious because a greedy man got bold. No. Vernon was not going to make me give up my own property. He was going to teach me how to protect it. Denise and I spent the next 3 weeks doing exactly that. First came the Cedar Hollow Property Trust. The cabin moved into it cleanly, legally, with every tax and title issue handled properly. I remained trustee while alive. After me, Megan would have lifetime use rights, but not unrestricted title that could be dragged into a divorce, debt fight, or in-law scheme. Any overnight use by extended family required written permission from the trustee. No commercial rental, no third-party events, no transfer of access codes, no exceptions made by spouses. Second came the Eleanor Hayes Grandchild Fund. I funded it separately from my savings and a portion of investments I had been meaning to reorganize anyway. Education, medical needs, first home assistance one day if used wisely. Direct benefit to my grandchildren, not to their parents, not to in-laws. not to anyone who thought bloodlines were ladders to climb. Third came the marital property acknowledgement. Denise insisted Evan needed independent counsel before signing anything, and I agreed. I wanted clean. I wanted voluntary. I wanted no one ever saying Walter Hayes trapped a young man at a kitchen table. The document said what Truth already knew. The Cedar Hollow cabin and related trust assets belonged to my family line, not to the Stokes family, not to Vernon, not to Patricia, not to any side business, and not to any man who confused access with ownership. Fourth came the demand letter. That one was addressed directly to Vernon and Patricia Stokes. It included the trespass warning, damages, cleaning costs, locksmith costs, security costs, unauthorized use of images, attempted commercial listing, and formal notice that any future entry onto Cedar Hollow property would result in criminal trespass charges. Denise wrote it in the kind of language that does not need profanity, because the invoice at the bottom does all the cussing. I scheduled the family meeting for the first Saturday in June. Not at my house. Not at Megan's. Not at the cabin. Denise's office, in downtown Knoxville. Conference room, long table, glass pitcher of water. Tissues, in a box, nobody wanted to be seen using. Professional. Neutral. Documented. I invited Megan and Evan first. Then I told Evan to invite his parents. He sounded sick when I said it. Walter, I don't think that's a good idea. It's the only idea, I said. My dad will make a scene. Then he'll make it in front of an attorney. Saturday came bright and hot. I arrived early in a navy blazer Eleanor had bought me for our 40th anniversary. I carried no anger into that room. Anger had done its job weeks ago. What I carried was a folder. Denise sat to my left. Her paralegal sat near the door. A small recorder was on the table, visible, blinking red. Megan and Evan arrived first. Megan looked tired in the way pregnant women look when they are carrying both a baby and family stress. Evan looked like he had not slept much. Good. Some lessons should cost sleep. Vernon and Patricia came in 8 minutes late. Vernon wore a golf shirt and a face full of injured pride. Patricia wore pearls, which told me she planned to be offended formally. Vernon didn't sit at first. I don't know why we're here, he said. Denise looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Stokes, you are here because my client is giving you the courtesy of hearing this directly before further civil action is considered. You may sit or you may leave. If you leave, the documents will be mailed. Vernon sat. That was the first victory. Denise began with the sheriff's report. She read the date, the time, the deputy's name, the official trespass warning, and the list of individuals identified on the property. Vernon rolled his eyes. Then Denise slid the printed weekend schedule across the table. Megan covered her mouth. Evan stared at his father. Dad, he said. Check out. Vernon shifted. That was just a joke. Denise placed the rental listing beside it. Nobody spoke. Then came the insurance quote. Then the county envelope. Then screenshots of the old social media photos used in the listing. Then the invoice for cleaning, repair, locksmith, and security. Patricia's pearls did not help her then. She looked at Vernon, and for the first time since I had known her, her smile disappeared completely. Vernon, she whispered, what did you do? He pointed at me. This is ridiculous. We were using a place that's going to be Megan's one day. Our grandbaby will be there. Our family should be welcome. I leaned forward then, not fast, not dramatic, just enough. Your family was welcome at my table when invited, I said. You were never welcome to turn my wife's cabin into your side business. His face reddened. You're twisting this. No, I said. I'm documenting it. Denise moved to the trust documents. She explained the Cedar Hollow Property Trust in plain English. Megan's face changed as she listened. At first fear, then confusion, then something softer. Relief, maybe. Not because the situation was easy, but because someone had finally built a wall where everyone else had been pretending a curtain was enough. Evan's independent attorney had already reviewed the acknowledgement. He had signed it 2 days earlier. Megan knew that part. Vernon did not. When Denise said Evan had voluntarily acknowledged that neither he nor his parents had any ownership claim, Vernon turned on his son. You signed what? Evan's voice shook, but he did not look away. I signed the truth. That was the second victory. Vernon slapped his palm on the table. So you're choosing them? Evan looked at Megan, then at me, then back at his father. I'm choosing my wife, he said. And I'm choosing not to steal from her father. Patricia started crying then. Real tears or useful tears, I couldn't tell. Megan reached for Evan's hand. He took it. Denise continued. The grandchild fund, the use restrictions, the no transfer access rule, the security system, the trespass notice, the demand for payment, the prohibition against using images, addresses, listings, or any reference to Cedar Hollow in any business, family event, or public post. When Denise finished, the room felt airless. Vernon stared at the documents like they had insulted him. You can't keep grandparents away from their grandchild, he said. I stood. Slowly. That made him look up. I am not keeping you from a child who is not even born yet, I said. I am keeping you from a property you tried to take before you were offered a chair. He opened his mouth. I raised one hand. Not high, just enough. You walked onto my land. You slept in my bed. You used my wife's things. You advertised my cabin. You let your relatives laugh under a banner with your name on it. And you did all that because you believed my daughter's marriage was a doorway into my life's work. I let the silence hold. It is not. Vernon looked around the room for help and found none. Not from Patricia, not from Evan, not from Megan, certainly not from Denise. That was the third victory. He paid the invoice 11 days later. Not because he became a better man. Men like Vernon rarely improve under pressure. They comply when the alternative is worse. The check cleared. The demand was satisfied. The trespass, notice, remained. 3 months later, Megan gave birth to a little girl named June Eleanor Stokes. I held that baby in the hospital and cried so hard Evan had to look out the window to give me privacy. She had Megan's nose and a grip like she intended to own the world by Thursday. The first time we took her to Cedar Hollow, the leaves were turning. Megan sat in Eleanor's rocker with baby June asleep against her chest. Evan fixed a loose board on the dock without being asked. I grilled burgers on my own grill. The security cameras blinked quietly from the eaves. The new locks worked perfectly. The silver bowl stayed in my house until Thanksgiving, where it belonged. Vernon and Patricia were not there, they had asked. Megan told them no. Not forever, not cruelly, just no. That little word can save a family when it arrives on time. A year has passed since that Friday morning. Cedar Hollow is still mine. One day it will serve Megan and June exactly the way Eleanor would have wanted. Not as a prize for greedy hands, not as a business opportunity for a man with no deed, not as a bargaining chip in somebody else's family politics, as a porch, as a sunset, as a promise kept. Vernon Stokes has not stepped foot on Cedar Hollow Road since the deputies watched him pack his cooler. I heard from Evan that he still complains about me at cookouts. Calls me controlling, calls me dramatic, says I embarrassed him in front of family. Maybe I did. But I will tell you something, family. Embarrassment is a small price to pay for trying to steal peace from an old man's porch. Sometimes revenge is not shouting. Sometimes it is not swinging a fist or slamming a door. Sometimes revenge is a sheriff's report, a changed lock, a trust document, a signed acknowledgement, and a man sitting alone in his kitchen realizing the free weekend he planned became the most expensive trip he ever took. And if there is one thing I want my granddaughter to learn from me, it is this. Love your family with your whole heart. But keep your name clear, your papers clean, and your doors locked. Because family can ask for help. Family can share a meal. Family can sit on your porch when invited. But no one, and I mean no one, gets to treat your life's work like their inheritance while you are still alive. The people we love deserve open hearts. But love also needs clear doors, honest words, and boundaries strong enough to protect peace. A home is more than walls. It holds memories, promises, and the future we hope to pass on. When we protect what matters with calmness instead of bitterness, we leave our family something better than property. We leave them dignity.